side. It's the evening of the 24th, next week.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. All right, yeah, Bob. Oh, yeah, Colonel Hurley. You know, when we normally have these meetings, we have people that are from the government with us. They represent folks that we like to meet and talk to, and we're always proud to be able to share with everybody that we have an extraordinarily important relationship with Corps of Engineers here. We even won an award that we are kind of recognized by the Corps headquarters as having a relationship with the Energy Huntsville, with the Corps Huntsville Center, and Colonel Hurley is here today. When you come, I love for you to sort of say hello. People need to see who you are. Maybe share a little bit about what's on your mind relative to the Corps coming into this new year. Y'all welcome Colonel Hurley from the Corps of Engineers.
Well, first let me just say Happy New Year to everyone. I probably haven't seen anyone since the New Year's rolled around. So Happy New Year. And I think, a good question what the Corps is working on this year. And I just have to characterize it as we're really trying to just continue on all the successes of last year. That, last couple of years, there have been some great partnerships and great initiatives, and I think the center is really just trying to get to the business of delivering on all the promises we've made and kind of executing. So that's what we're working on. So.
Okay. I know we're talking to Paul Robinson from time to time. He's also trying to reach out in his contracting excellence and bring in some of the other agencies. Are you still growing your Air Force and some of the other agencies to come and work with you all in terms of contract? Is that something that I think that's important for us? We're sort of Army focused, so that's important to us.
No, that's true. I think, up in Washington, D.C., the Army has set up its Office of Energy Initiatives several years ago, and the center was very instrumental in helping them get that going. And the Air Force is now standing up its Office of Energy Assurance, which is a sister type organization, which is going to help them do many of those large-scale renewable type investments. And so they're up and running now. And at the National Small Business Conference, there was a great panel. And I think there's a lot of attention and focus on helping DoD deliver on all of that. So,
yeah. I always thought about, we know we met Dr. Tim Unruh through Paul Robinson, and the DOE, I guess, has had some relationship with you as well. I think they've been working in terms of trying to get your contracting group to help them. So anyway, thank you for being here, and Happy New Year. So since we have since Bill normally has a speech to make about what's going on, I have no idea what he had on his mind. So I'm just going to welcome you again and maybe share, something that comes to mind all the time, because I feel sort of blessed in a way to have been part of this whole organization. We started several years ago, and who knows what was going to happen with Energy Huntsville, what was it? And we've grown significantly, and we've got some really important people that are part of our organization, both small companies and large. And so since this program is a little bit different, and normally I like to ask people that are here if they've got something to share that's going on in their organization. I thought maybe I would just have anybody that has any announcements or anything they'd like to share with the group, please stand up and say so. Ted, you got something?
For those of you who don't know, last week the last pieces of Intergraph have been renamed. We are now Hexagon US Federal. Intergraph exists as a brand name only, but if you see Hexagon, just think Intergraph. I know that's not the most obvious thing to think about, but we've become part of the larger corporation, just so we might avoid some future confusion.
Thank you, Ted. Appreciate that. Just now figuring out how to spell Intergraph. Yes, sir. Cedric Davis always has a few things to say. Jump in.
No, just one little thing. I'm presently have the privilege of serving as the president of the Huntsville chapter of AEE, and awards are coming up like real soon. Many of you have gotten emails from me. We did good for Huntsville last 2 years, so if you have anyone that you think that may be a candidate for any kind of award, I would appreciate you touching bases with me. You have Cecil here, you have Barb Starlin here. We just want to get it rolling and get it to us. We want to get them in, and we've normally done well, so we encourage you to touch bases with us, and we'd like to put anybody in that would be a good candidate for energy-related awards.
And when you say energy-related, there's categories.
There's categories. There's international, there's national, there's regional. I didn't bring it all with me, but if you touch bases with me, I'll get you an email today.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Yes.
I wanted to let everybody know that the Innovate Huntsville is going to be the last week of February into the first part of March. So February 27th through like March 3rd, 4th. And it's a full week event. We've got really all the initiatives represented. It starts with the Geo Hack event, kicks it off. And we're at like multiple locations. So we'll be here for parts of the week. We'll be at Campus 805 for parts of the week. Evening events, also out at Low Mill, there will be events. So they're getting the website stood up, so stay tuned for more information. But it's really focusing on innovation and entrepreneur, I can never say that word, startups of any kind. And so we've got a lot of great speakers lined up. I think it'll be a good week.
Okay, Keisha, thanks for bringing that up. By the way, next month, why don't you plan to share with us some details about that event? Maybe you have a slide or two or something, and share where things are taking place and who's participating.
Okay.
Hey, Jay, yes.
You caught me a little off guard. I don't think I'm awake yet. I guess I should have more coffee. But one of the other things is registration's now open for the National Cybersecurity Summit. That's Cyber Huntsville's big event, and it's 6th through 8th June. Expecting well over 1,000 people this year at the Von Braun Center downtown. Of course, everybody's welcome.
Yeah, I think that's the announcement I saw. That's what I was thinking about. Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir. This is Jim Fluid. I'm going to get to meet him in a minute.
So I'd like to add one thing. The Nexus Energy Center with Ruchi, we have a monthly podcast that is now sponsored by Nexus Energy Center, where we interview, have discussions with industry leaders around energy, policymakers, and influencers in industry. So if you go to Nexus Energy's website, you can see the link for the monthly podcast, and it's brought to you by Nexus Energy Center,
on our YouTube channel.
And facilitated by Ruchi and myself on a monthly basis. And hopefully we'll see you on the podcast sometime, right? We'd love to interview a lot of the people in this room and have you on as guest speakers.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Rishi, I don't know if you want to share anything there, but last month you were here and had a young fellow sitting with you, and you actually videotaped the event, which I thought was very well done. Are you going to be doing some of that for us this year?
Yeah, a couple of things. So thank you, Jim, for talking about the podcast. And everything is always archived on our YouTube channel. So if you're looking for last month's Energy Huntsville meeting, you can find it there. All of our Nexus Talks tips are there. And then the podcasts are there as well, even though those are just audio, not video. But right now, Emily is actually Facebook Live streaming this meeting today. So as we get questions, if we see any, we'll tell you. And then also this whole video will be put on that YouTube channel. And the last thing I wanted to say, and Cecil, I think I'd sent you an email about the 40 Under 40 award. There's an award called 40 Under 40 by the Consulting Specified Engineering magazine. And Dr. Barnhart actually encouraged me to apply last year, and I won. So I was one of the 40 Under 40 nationally known for helping in building science and energy work nationwide. And they're encouraging us to ask others under 40 to apply. So if you have any desire or know somebody who would be applicable, please let me know, and I'd love to send the application to them, because it's an honor to have somebody from Huntsville who's a winner, and I think we could have more. So
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Is there anybody here under 40?
We'll find.
Maybe it should be a 40. Okay, well, thank you all for bearing with. Yeah. So you got something?
We also have one of the reports that's just under 35. So if you could ask questions by under 35, well, since nobody raised their hand with 40 out. That's it. We do have certified energy manager training at
missed what it was, Cecil, say it again.
Certified Energy Manager Training.
Oh, okay.
Our chapter has been sponsoring that each year. We've trained over 45 individuals, which over 50% of those have obtained their Certified Energy Manager. Some are EMIT, which is Energy Manager in Training. If you don't have the requisite experience, then you can sign up for that. I see some of the folks in the room that have signed up, but if anybody else is interested, just shoot Cedric or I an email and we'll get you started on that.
Thank you so much, Cecil. I think it's worth saying, I think, don't you all agree, Cedric and you too, that this certification is becoming more and more important in the work that we do in the energy sector. So it becomes something that we need to promote pretty strongly. So I appreciate you guys handling that, and we've got a group right here in Huntsville that's certifying people in this area. Let's see, who else have I left out? So the one other thing I wanted to mention, I got a phone call from Matt Reed. You know, Matt normally comes up every week with the new opportunities and so forth, and he had an emergency situation, medical situation with his dog, actually. So he's having to take the dog and get some x-rays or whatever, so he apologized, but he's going to put the opportunity, his briefing will be on our website after today, so you'll be able to see what it was he was going to share with us. So, let's see, anybody else, Portia showed up. Have you got anything you want to share? I'm always happy to have you say hello. She's a branch chief of the Corps of Engineers, helps us a great deal with our partnership, so thank you for being here today. Anybody got anything else? If not, I'm going to ask Bob Starling to come up and say hello. And, you know, Bob, I'm going to preempt you just a little bit because I might not get a chance to say this. He normally announces what the program is going to be coming up next month. You probably have something to say about that. I'm excited about it because they've asked me to be the presenter, and I'm going to talk about Energy Huntsville to some degree, but I'm going to talk about what you need to do to move forward in the energy sector to succeed in your company, because part of what I do when I'm not doing this is I'm counseling with small companies on how to grow. And the energy sector is critical. We're talking about billions of dollars, you know, going through the core. So I'll be excited to join you, and hopefully, Risha, you'll get a chance to sort of videotape this so I can use it on my website. So thank you all for being here. Here's Bob Starling.
Thank you, Jay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Have you ever felt like a deer in the headlights? Sometime in your life, you've experienced that feeling. I guarantee you. You don't have to tell me about it. We don't have time for that today. But I felt like the deer in the headlights a few minutes ago. I was getting ready to get everything lined up. Our speakers here and well in advance. Everything's looking good. We got 3 people in the audience. And then I look and the commander of Huntsville comes up and I said, oh my goodness. You know, this isn't all, we're not off to a great start here. The next thing that happens, I get a phone call from Bill Carswell. Dr. Carswell, he said, sorry Bob, I'm sick, can't make it. Okay, that's fine. We've all been through these things, right?
Yeah.
Some point in our life. Next thing I get a call from Jay. Jay said, hey Bob, I'm stuck in the traffic, I'm probably gonna be late. And I'm thinking, I know who's number 3. And that's fine, it's all good. It really is all good. And we all ought to be in those situations every once in a while just to keep us alive and keep those good vibes going, shouldn't we? Hey, listen, Jay's right. We got a great schedule this year. We're already booked all the way through June. So if you've got somebody that you'd like to have as a speaker or somebody you'd like to refer to me, please do that. But please know in advance it'll be July or later before we can work them in. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That shows the interest of people out there that want to be a part of this organization. It ties us together. And I look at that as a positive thing. Jay's already stole my thunder for next week meeting, and that's fine. He's entitled to do that because he sure bailed me out today. Greg Cox comes up in March, talking about the Alabama Solar Industry Association. And we just go on and on from there. We got some great speakers, really good speakers. Now, one of the things that I wanted to emphasize that Cedric mentioned, like most of you, I'm involved in several different things. I happen to be what's called a Region 2 Association of Energy Engineers Vice President. That means I took Cecil's job, is what it really means. But aside from that, responsible for all of the AEE chapters from Maryland down to Florida. We used to have one in Puerto Rico, and I was hoping we'd keep that because I was going to try to go down there and visit, but it didn't work out. Let me tell you something, awards. Cedric mentioned awards. Please, please feed him any information you can. We had an individual last year who won an award. He was one of 7 people in the world. That's fairly significant. One of 7 people in the world, international award. So that's doing great. I've cut Cedric's timeline on the submissions. Sorry, Cedric, but we've got to get those in. We've got to get them in a timely manner. We mentioned Tim Unruh a little bit earlier. I found out this week that Tim Unruh is moving to a different position. And while I can't recall it immediately, I know he's doing that. And his replacement is somebody that many of you in this audience know. At least his temporary replacement. You know how the government does this, they don't ever actually give you the person temporarily, then they usually work into it, and that's fine. Leslie Nichols. Those of you who've had the privilege of working with Leslie in Gov Energy and now Energy Exchange and those types of things, about a year ago, less than a year ago, she moved over to DOE, and now she is taking Tim Unruh's job. So that's important, and I don't know if everybody caught that or not. Leslie's a great lady, and will do good things. Jay? Yes, sir. Tim Unruh was the Federal Energy Management Director, and it's often referred to as FEMP, or Federal Energy Management Director. So he was the key person related to energy, running the contracts, doing a lot of presentations on energy. He was the key point of contact. Colonel, is that fair enough to say it that way? Okay. When I worked at the Corps, the defense director and I were kind of partners, and today that's the case, even more so. So that's what Tim did, and now Leslie is doing it. So I know several of us in the audience have had the privilege of working with Leslie, and I hope she does get that job permanently. But she's a temporary director right now. Okay. Well, now that I'm past the deer in the headlights look, I want to go ahead and introduce our guest speaker for today, and it's Jim Pleur. Jim is the Federal Program Director for Power Monitoring and Controls at Schneider Electric. For the past 20 years, he's helped customers solve their energy and power challenges to ensure that they are mission ready while saving money. Mission ready while saving money. Key words here, folks. Jim lives up the road in Nashville, Tennessee, and he drove down here this morning and got here early. So let's welcome Jim to the platform today.
So I typically present from the floor and wander around, but I'm short, and so this makes me feel very tall up here. So we'll stay up here. Oh, you're going to drive one? Yeah. Fantastic. So a few years ago, I was asked to go into the Archdiocese of Massachusetts and talk about energy management programs for the church. And it was a last-minute activity. I volunteered and went in, and what I wasn't expecting is when I walked up, I saw that it was an auditorium not of a few people, but of hundreds and hundreds of people. And I didn't have a speech. I thought I was going in to just talk to a small room full of people. So I'm backstage kind of panicking. I've got like 10 minutes to pull something together out of my hat or somewhere else. And I'm thinking, what do I do? And suddenly this young priest walks by, and he passes me a note. And this note says, "Blessed is he who is brief." And it saved my can that day. So from that point on, I always try to make my presentations brief, and then if people hopefully hop into the presentation, we can kind of self-direct it and see where it goes, right? I try not to make it a harbor cruise because I don't want to get you seasick, but at the same time, I want to make sure that it's concise, it's the point. So thank you to Energy Huntsville and to Jay Newkirk. Jay, thank you for having me here. Into Nexus Energy Center, Ruchi and crew for live streaming this around the world. Hey, pan around the room for a minute. Let them see all these beautiful faces out here. We've got a room full of talent here. And what's incredible is today we're going to be talking about microgrids. And you know, I'm from Schneider Electric, but you see Honeywell and you see Johnson Controls, and we've got a lot of small businesses in this room. And all these folks are involved in the microgrid business somehow, right? So I'm going to make this non-commercial, not Schneider Electric focused. This will be a general microgrid discussion and hopefully encompass a lot of you, because we've all been doing microgrids for a long time. And you can hit the fast forward button on this thing. But we've all been doing microgrids for a long time. We just didn't call it microgrids. That's the term of the day, right? But how many of you have been involved in a microgrid before? Quite a few people, right? Back in the day, I'm going to say 20 years ago when I first joined Schneider, we were doing generator controls. We were doing a lot in like oil and gas and pharmaceutical, petrochem. I'm sure a lot of you have done that over the years as well. Critical power applications, where if the power goes down, something blows up, people die, millions of dollars get thrown out the window, like in the semiconductor manufacturing process. Or maybe it's something as simple as a winery where you've got bottling lines that you can't let go out. Right? All those things would demand a microgrid. We just didn't call it microgrids back then. We called it critical power applications. But we had to make sure that the power was still on. Nowadays we call it microgrids. And really what's changed in that environment is now we have more affordable solutions around distributed energy resources, including batteries, including renewables, that can now be integrated into those microgrids, where before they were generally cost prohibitive. Right? So just put it in context. Don't view this as something new. View it as something improved. So what is a microgrid? A microgrid is really nothing more than a group of distributed energy resources, and by that I mean instead of having a utility company necessarily, you can have distributed resources around your facilities. They may be generators, reciprocating generators, right? Might be batteries, might be renewables, could be combined heat and power. All those things working in concert and having a big picture in control of both supply and demand, and having the ability to island from your utility company and still maintain that power system and being able to keep your lights on, right? That's at its essence what a microgrid is. In the next slide. So there's a few things that we typically have inside of a microgrid. There are some things that we have to have. So we have to have in a microgrid some sort of distributed energy resource, right? We have to have a generator of some sort. And again, it could be a battery, it could be a diesel generator, it could be a natural gas recip engine, it could be a lot of things. We also have to have some controls, because without controls, we have no way of turning the generator on and off. We have no way of shedding non-critical loads, and we need to be able to control that entire asset. So keep this in mind. Before you're investing in a microgrid, and typically microgrid generation assets are more expensive than buying from the utility company, right? Not always, but typically. So what I always tell people is before or as you are deploying a microgrid, you want to reduce your energy demand at your facility, right? So be smart about it. Increase energy efficiency. Put some controls in that allow you to shed non-critical loads. Because if you have a 10 megawatt load and only say 2 megawatts of that are critical, you may not want to or be able to afford a microgrid that would serve all 10 megawatts, right? Maybe it's a 2 megawatt microgrid. And if those numbers are too big for you, just take a zero off the end. It's the same idea. So shed those non-critical loads, become more energy efficient, and then apply those microgrid resources, those distributed energy resources, to those loads that are absolutely critical, life-critical, mission-critical applications. So we have a microgrid webpage that is full of information, and yeah, that's me up there. People say I've got a face for radio. I often use that one because it's true. So I don't do a whole lot of videos. I do more speaking than videos. But we've got a microgrid landing page, and again, I'm sure that others have this as well. But it's an educational page where you can see what is a microgrid, how does it work, and it's got some animations in there. My folks think that I'm a movie star when they see this. You can do the next slide. So the true value proposition of a microgrid is not just to save energy. It's not just to protect life and mission. It's not just to keep those critical applications alive. It's all those things combined, right? So within a microgrid, I typically break it into 3 different areas. We've got energy reliability, we've got efficiency and optimization, and there's green energy. The challenge in a slide like this is we could talk for days about each one of these segments, right? But I'm going to touch on, I'm going to keep it brief, as my good friend says. And we're going to talk a little bit about energy reliability, a little bit about green energy, and probably a whole lot about efficiency and optimization. Because when the DoD, or I should say when the Fed in general, wants to buy and implement a microgrid, it has to be anchored on energy cost reduction, right? Everything else is important. Don't leave me yet. If you could go back for a minute. Everything else is important, obviously, and typically it's what the mission calls for is energy reliability. However, it's all built on the foundation of energy cost savings. So we use that as a financial justification and wrap the whole package around economics. But what the customers typically want is energy reliability. Energy reliability is a huge challenge inside of microgrids. And for those of you who have raised your hands before, you know this well, because when you isolate yourself from the utility company, you go from what's typically a very stiff system that is able to ride through power quality events to suddenly being a very unstiff system, right? A very weak system. And that's a huge challenge. So when you start bringing in your distributed energy resources, such as your renewable assets, you've got a big PV array out there, and you're feeding that in. You disconnect from the utility company, what happens to that PV array? Typically, the inverters realize that there has been a power quality event, not just from the utility company, but also from the other generation assets on your installation. They're seeing big loads being fed, and oftentimes, those inverters will disconnect from the grid, right? So really two issues that we've got going on there. Number one is when the federal government went around and started deploying a lot of renewables, most of those renewables were not microgrid ready renewables, right? Those inverters that are on those distributed energy resources were intended to protect the utility grid and the linemen from backfeeding those lines. So when there's a power quality event and the utility company drops, those inverters, due to UL standards, disconnect. So you're not backfeeding the utility company, right? So that's the first challenge. If you overcome that and you put in inverters that will ride through those events, then you have another issue. You still have to be able to isolate further upstream at the main service entrance to prevent from backfeeding. That's how we address it. But then you've got a very weak system that is inherently unstable. And you need to understand the implications of firing up generators, bringing loads online and offline, and keeping that whole system stable so that all those inverters and all those systems remain online. So big challenges. Here we go. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. So when we talk about a microgrid, it's not just typically large loads that we're monitoring in large generators that we're bringing online. Many of the microgrids that we see now within the Army and within the Navy, actually, they're looking at industrial control system type of applications. So what I would consider SCADA, supervisory control and data acquisition, high-speed data monitoring and control. And they're doing that not just to a medium voltage pad mount switch, but further downstream into rooms, right? They're looking at how do we shed non-critical loads in facilities. Maybe it's lighting adjustments to reduce the lighting loads. Maybe it's temperature setbacks to use thermal efficiency of buildings, right? Thermal ride-through. And it's also planning ahead. So it's looking that if I have renewable energy on my installation, say some PV, how do I know how much energy that array is going to be developing, not only today, but tomorrow, in forecasting out over the ways? And then I can plan for what will my available resources be for serving load, how much load can I have online, how much do I need to shed? And all that happening in synchronicity together. So there's a lot happening. So these microgrids are often talking to, again, the pad mount switches, they're talking to some of your switch gear out there, but they're also talking to building control systems. They may be talking to the utility company, and that becomes an issue within DoD, right? It becomes an issue for all feds, even civilian agencies, because having cloud-based resources, solutions, doesn't always fit the bill. So if you're running Fort Bliss, for instance, and you want to do day-ahead forecasting, where do you get the data? You you get it from the cloud? Probably not. That's not gonna happen. They don't let you go out there and grab that information. So having some on-site weather capability that gets tied into the system as well can be a critical aspect of it. Let's go to the next one. Next. Okay, so let's talk about some of the use cases. And I'm sorry to block your view over here. I don't understand. Okay, let's talk about some use cases of microgrids. How are they being used today? Well, one of these is for energy savings around remote monitoring of distributed energy resources. When we see DER, think about a generator, a genset of some sort, and that may be a renewable, it may be a battery, it may be a recip engine. However, realize that all of these DERs need to be monitored, right? And anytime you have a microgrid, you have a SCADA backbone or industrial control system backbone. So one of the applications of a microgrid is being able to monitor all of these DERs and optimize them. That's a big issue. Because think about a battery. I'm going to combine a couple slides here. But think about a battery. If you've got a multiple megawatt hour battery sitting out there, how do you know when to charge that battery or discharge that battery? Right? What's the optimum time to charge and discharge that based on peak loads or based on shaving, doing load shifting, or even managing the life of the battery? How fast can you discharge? When do you discharge? How often do you discharge? All those things get wrapped into a microgrid. Next slide, please. Also, load shifting is a big application. So we see a lot of instances where customers have mission critical applications that have to happen at a certain time, but then they also have some other applications that may be able to run at other times. A simple example of that is, let's think about the thermal efficiency of a building. Being able to preheat or pre-chill the building and use that thermal ride through to better use that distributed energy resource or to lower your overall demand. Right? So we talked about increasing efficiency of your facilities before you spend a lot of money on renewable energy resources or on microgrids. This is a prime application. Be smart about the way that you're managing your energy and be smart about its application. Next one. So tariff management, optimization of start and stop times is a big one. Large motor loads. You go to Arnold Air Force Base in Tullahoma, right up the road from here, right? And they go from, I think the base load is something around 3 to 5 megawatts. And when they start running those hypersonic wind tunnels, it goes up to 450 megawatts, right? That's a pretty big jump. Now, the way that they manage that is they have a big reservoir up there and they let down some water below over turbines and they've got their own built-in generator. That's a very big example of having a peak demand. So how do you get rid of that? How do you do this optimum start and start, stop and start? A lot of it has to do with, again, with that industrial control system and knowing what can I shift. Maybe I'm turning banks of lights on and I do it instantaneously and it creates a new peak demand in my facility. In the commercial world, we see that all the time, where at night everybody in the building goes home and they turn out the lights, and then around midnight the cleaning crew comes on and they turn on all the lights at once in a 50-story building, right? And they burn all night. And you can imagine that could set a new peak demand inside a facility. Same way with ballparks and things of that nature. Or if you've got a wash area for your vehicles, we see that in military installations a lot as well. You've got HID lamps all over the place over multiple acres, and boom, 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 they light them all up at once. It creates big problems. Okay, next. So we talked a little bit about battery integration, and one of the things that I want to mention is that the utilization of a battery has a lot of nuances to it. Not only when do you discharge, how long do you discharge, and what does that profile look like, but also when do you charge that battery? What's the lowest cost energy that you can charge it with? And then also, are you charging that battery with only renewable energy, or is it a mixture of grid energy and renewable energy? And that can affect what your tax incentives look like. Or in the case of the feds, if there's an ESCO involved in the project, they can capture additional tax incentives that get flowed down to you if they're charging a battery with renewable energy versus with grid energy. And we all in this room understand, we all understand that electrons are electrons, right? However, if you're able to prove that that battery is fed by renewable energy versus utility energy, it's a very different financial profile of the project. Next slide, please. So also peak shaving. Who can tell me what peak shaving is? I want to make this more interactive because I don't want to put you folks to sleep. What do you think? William?
Yes.
What do you think about peak shaving? You're a big fan of peak shaving.
I am absolutely.
Yeah, I can
right.
tell.
You can tell right here.
Yeah, exactly. We gotta stick together.
Peak shaving is whenever you're going ahead and taking the demand off your utilities, you can go ahead and supplement that with another generating source, such as a generator. So if you have a high demand at a hospital, instead of the hospital to get the utility power, stop me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
If the hospital's using large demand during peak times or high cost of energy, why don't they bring up their gensets, run their generators if the diesel is at a low enough price, right?
That's right.
Supplement their power instead of coming off from utilities.
Exactly. So William nailed it. Keep in mind, guys, that the microgrid doesn't necessarily have to island from the utility company to be effective, right? Oftentimes you're running in parallel with the utility company. But you have to be doing that economic justification, typically on the fly, where you're saying, does it make economic sense for me to be generating? And if I am going to be generating, when do I generate and what do I generate with, right? If I have some renewables that are cooking away, obviously I want to use those. But if I have to fire up a peaker, if I've got a peak generation asset at my facility, does it make sense to fire that up? Does it make sense to shed some other load so I don't have to fire it up? Or if I am going to fire it up, what kind of fuel am I going to be using? Where is it located? How does that affect the rest of my mission? All those variables have to be taken into consideration. Thank you. So Bumblebee is now reading my mind, starting to sink here. So of course, self-consumption is an important part of everything that we do in the microgrid, because if you have a generation asset that is tied into a microgrid, you want to be able to use it as much as possible. That's another big challenge with the DoD, is that there's a lot of generation assets out there that can't be run on a full-time basis, right? They're not base load certified according to the EPA. So they could be backup gens only for use in only an emergency case. There are ways to address that. You can come in and have them recertified with different mission standards, typically quite expensive to make that happen. But keep in mind that just because a customer or one of your installations has generation assets out there, you might not be able to apply them as a base load generation asset, and that becomes a big challenge for us. Tammy and I recently saw one of these applications where they had a big diesel train that was sitting outside of the command headquarters down in one of the southern installations, and they were talking about using that as one of the peakers, and unfortunately the EPA said you can't do that. Right? It can't be a stationary. That can't be a stationary generator. So their idea was, well, when the EPA finds it, we'll just drive it away.
Camouflage.
That's right, camouflage. Unfortunately, it was red. Okay. So, but of course, demand response is another big one. Some installations can participate in demand response, and others can't. If you can't participate in demand response programs, I often say that load curtailment is the opposite side of the same coin, right? So even if you're not receiving the financial incentive from the utility company for demand response, you can still curtail some of your load to reduce your overall energy intensity of your facilities. And by the way, we're posting this slide deck. I'm kind of cranking through them real fast to be brief, but these will be on the web for you to look at. I love the solar forecasting application. It's become a great benefit in the private industry, and I'm hoping that we're going to see more use of this within the federal world. I think that GSA is looking at some of these applications in the civilian federal market. The civilian agencies, they are much more willing to accept hosted cloud-based applications for some of their facilities. It has a lot to do with the mission-critical applications of what they're doing, and some of their less strict cyber requirements than DoD. But the ability to forecast solar, not only how much sun I'm going to have, the irradiance of the arrays today, and again tomorrow and maybe a week out, but also what's cloud cover going to be? Are there storms blowing in? How's that going to affect my mission? How's that going to affect my ability to self-generate? And then how do I maybe shift load around to other installations? Or maybe I need to truck in more fuel to run my generators. All this kind of forecasting information is very critical inside of microgrid. Let's go to the next one. Go to the next one. Anyone more? Okay. This is what I wanted to show you. There's a great story on YouTube about Encore, the utility company down in Texas that implemented a microgrid. And Schneider was one of the companies involved, but there were many others as well. I love this story because it's not just a microgrid, it's multiple microgrids all in one. It's actually 4 distinct zones And so it is what they call a grid of grids. Each zone has an area that consumes energy, a demand application. Each zone has an area that has a generation or two of assets, and they're all tied together. So we call it a grid of grids, because at any given time, these zones can share loads and share generation assets between each other. So it's kind of a macro micro grid, if you view it that way, right? A grid of grids. So it's a great story to illustrate the power of intelligent distribution and control applications within the power world. And so I would highly recommend it. Well, there's stories on YouTube about it, and others if you go to this Microgrid Knowledge website, you can check it out. Okay, hit the next one. Yes, Ted.
Well, quick question. When you have a grid of grids like that, how do you avoid sub-optimizing the behavior so that you don't run into problems where one grid is trying to essentially compete with another grid and leading to overall instability of the total grid?
Yeah, so the prioritization of loads and prioritization of generation assets, right?
Yeah.
So the real challenge in those environments is the industrial control system that connects it all, and the prioritization based on the load controllers, right? So each one of those zones has load controllers that talks to each other. So a load controller is fundamentally a PLC, a programmable logic controller. And those have the load prioritization programs built into them. They can be cloud-based or they can be on-premise. And again, this is not a Schneider-specific conversation. This is for everybody in this room that is involved in this. And these load controllers will look at what's being generated, what's being called on by demand, and then speak between each other to justify what needs to happen. Because if they're simply working in a vacuum, that kind of prioritization doesn't happen. I think it's a big issue. Thank you, Ted.
That goes back to really what you're saying at the beginning about having an SOP for the total complex that you're really trying to provide a microgrid for.
That's right.
Rather than having your standard operating procedure say, hey, if then.
Exactly. Yes, Jeff.
In the case of the grids environment, we've got multiple. Where does this industrial control system that you mentioned reside? Is it sort of reside in a headquarters building and then it reaches out to the other aspects? Or how does the control system really work in the environment?
Sure. So this industrial control system, ICS or SCADA platform, typically resides in multiple locations, right? So within a grid of grid, each one of these has its own industrial control system. In a more typical application, you can see where you've got one master controller. It's residing in typically a secure critical application, could be a data center. Keep in mind, it doesn't have to be a massive infrastructure of controllers. It can be a rack of controllers, but in a secure location, obviously, someplace that won't get flooded, won't get blown up, right? Someplace that's physically secure as well as secure by an IT standard. So it can be a lot of places.
I had the opportunity to go to that site we owned for, and they had their room set up just like you described, rack set up, but they also had an application that they were using. They were kind of sampling it to see how it could make it a smart grid, if you will, and it could turn them on and turn them off based on the different loads that were out in the field. So we got to see the solar panels, the Tesla batteries, and the micro turbine. And it was just whenever they met to a certain capacity and everything was satisfied, you would see it kind of toggle off and things like that. So
Yeah, thank you for that. And you can actually tour this facility if you're down in the Texas region. We're able to go out there and tour it. They've got a big command and control center where you can go in and see the interaction of all the distributed energy resources and all the demand side applications that is controlling. Right, so it's a great story. And again, there's a lot of vendors that were involved in this, as well as MIT Lincoln Labs. Some of the national labs were involved in the development of it. So it was a big industry-wide effort. So the last thing that I wanted to leave you with was a story about one of our clients out in Connecticut. You see Connecticut Light Power, CLMP. This is a simple demonstration of what can be done with a microgrid. As you can see, we've got a 13 kV supply coming in. We've got some 208 controls down there, and then we've also got some distributed generation assets down at the bottom. We've got a fuel cell with an inverter. We've got a PV system with an inverter. And of course, the challenge is, in this type of environment, when that service entrance drops, those inverters open up and they disconnect because we don't want to backfeed the grid. So let's hit the next button. So one of the things that we did out there was put some medium voltage breakers out there, as well as some low voltage surge breakers, and hopefully you can all see this from the back of the room. But this basically made controllable loads. So now we're able to shed loads when the utility drops. We're able to shed non-critical loads, and we're also able to keep those inverters online, right, through load balancing. We had a real challenge here though, because as you may know, in some of these microgrid applications, when you disconnect from the utility, you not only go to a very weak system from the stiff system, but you lose your common ground, right? And so a lot of people don't actually think about that. So hit the next button. One of the things that we did was we put a zigzag transformer on the primary side over connected light and power. So we still had a common ground when we opened up that main bus coming in from the utility company. That solved a lot of ground problems. So one of the lessons learned. Okay. Was that brief enough? What do you think? Okay. So I welcome questions. I'd love to have a little dialogue if anybody wants to come up and dance or talk. I've got your dad. Yes, Jay.
Got a multiple level question here about microgrids and the adoption of those microgrids from an industrial perspective and also in the government. On behalf of Early Core, I know they've got an objective, their client base being the installations worldwide, they've got a net zero objective, they've got a reduced energy objective. How are they prepared to really basically deploy microgrids in these installations? Is that going to come in the near future, or is it way off?
Boy, that's a tough question. I think I better give this over to the Colonel and let him answer. I will say that within the Army there is a significant interest in microgrids, not only from the Corps, not only from OEI, but also at the installation level, right? So the challenge at this point has not been interest, it's been funding. And I think that Catherine Hammock has been investigating how to better monetize the value of microgrids. And I think that Army is probably one of the agencies that's furthest along with being able to monetize those. And the challenge that we've got is that when the federal government looked at all the millions of dollars that they spent on renewables, they've now recognized that when the utility company drops, those renewables drop. And so you've got hundreds of megawatts of renewable energy out there that can't be used for backup power generation. Right? So if the power goes out from the utility company, those renewables don't work anymore. And then you've got a 50 megawatt solar array sitting in your backyard that can't be used. So DOD recognizes this challenge and is now proposing to put microgrids in that are islandable from the utility company and to go back in and retrofit those systems and tie them into the bigger microgrid picture. I think that the Army is also exploring bringing additional funding into their public-private partnerships, their ESPCs and their UESCs, because microgrids don't always cash flow within an ESPC or a UESC. They sometimes do. If you can find enough other ECMs to help buy down or offset the cost of the microgrid, that's one thing. Another thing is that those prime generation assets, those prime movers that you want to bring into the ESPCs or UESCs are typically quite expensive and don't have a very good payback to them. So if the installation is able to bring in those prime movers and use them as base load generators, and either bring them in with buy down funds in the ESPC or bring them in as a funded project outside of the ESPC or UESC or Schedule 84 or what have you. But bring them in with an eye towards tying them into a microgrid in the future, then you have a project that can work. And so my recommendation to the installation is, even if you can't do a microgrid today, be educated about the parts and pieces that will make a successful microgrid in the future. And as you build out your infrastructure, do so in a stepwise approach that will ultimately lead you to an area where you can exploit that energy sustainability that a microgrid can provide. Did that answer your question?
That did. Yeah. Who else has a question?
Any other questions? Yeah, Jay.
You mentioned cloud and the government's hesitant to use cloud solutions. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how that impacts microgrid?
Yeah, so thank you, Jay, and Jay is instrumental in helping companies like Schneider and many others navigate those muddy waters of certification through RMF, risk management framework, the old IAF framework. So the challenge that we have within the federal world is that if number one, if you've been to one Army installation, you've been to one Army installation, right? And also every agency is different. Every agency sets their own rules or interprets the rules a little bit differently. And so we're seeing that there are some agencies that are willing to explore cloud-based solutions. But again, most of those are not within DoD. We do have one Navy application, actually, a microgrid Navy application that we're deploying right now, where they are willing to entertain parts of cloud-based applications. The whole thing won't be cloud-based, but they are willing to have a connection to the outside world, which is a first step. It's a great first step. But I'll tell you, it's in order to prove that that's going to be a secure connection, not only today but down the road, and being able to maintain that security standard over the tenor of the project is time-consuming and expensive, right? And that's one of the challenges with, even if we can deploy cloud-based systems, how do you do so in an affordable fashion? Because you not only have to get RMF certification on the front end, but again, for the entire tenor of that project, you need to maintain that certification. So we are seeing some applications, very few within DoD, where they're willing to accept some cloud-based solutions. But within the civilian world, within VA, within GSA, and within NOAA, Department of Commerce, we're able to deploy some cloud-based systems. And again, this isn't just around microgrids, this is around energy in its totality, right? And again, every agency is different. You know, the VA is going to accept some hosted solutions. We've got a large energy monitoring package that the VA runs in the cloud, but they won't allow any connections outside of their facilities unless it's of a certain flavor, right? So they have their own controls around it. And GDIT works with the Army on a regular basis right now on their enterprise metering system. And that's cloud-based, but it's cloud-based within a secure government application that's coordinated and managed by GDIT. So that world is changing, but it's changing slowly, and we need talent to help us navigate those waters. I'll get to you, Ted.
I have a question, and it kind of touches on what you mentioned just a few minutes ago about the phasing out of microgrid, as far as like the phasing it up, getting prepared for the installation, and then also you touched on the RMF side of it. What is the industry's answer to sustainment? When you come to the installation, when you go to the installations and you present these solutions for what they're dealing with at that particular time, it sounds good, but then you have that energy manager or whomever DPW representative that's going to be left with that to bear. What is industry's approach to helping to curtail some of the sustainment, risk management, everything like that?
It's a huge issue. So Colonel Hurley knows this one all too well. When you deploy, say you've got an ESPC, typically the O&M for that ESPC would be wrapped around the entire tenor of the project. So if you've got a 23-year ESPC, you're going to have O&M for 23 years, right? If you deploy a system outside of a public-private partnership, you better have an O&M package to help them maintain that through the change in administration going down the road. When you've got a microgrid or anything that requires RMF, the challenge is RMF won't be around forever. DICAP wasn't around forever. Things evolve, right? And so if you've got a 23-year project, how do you price that up as a support contract for the entire tenor of the project? You really can't, right? So there's a couple solutions that I've seen. Either one, you cap it and you say we're going to do this for 5 years for a fixed amount of cost, and that's within the current RMF structure. And if that RMF structure changes, we're going to have to renegotiate what that looks like, right? Within a public-private partnership, that becomes a little bit sticky. You can also build that out to the entire tenor of the project, and you put a fence around it. So you can say as long as the project, as long as the RMF solution looks, it feels, and tastes like this, then this price is valid. The more common application that I'm seeing is that people will put a cap on a timeline. So about 5 years is what I'm seeing in the industry right now for what people are willing to do.
Well, I guess my question, as far as the industry is concerned, as far as the expertise, the availability of expertise that's out there to be able to move forward and to keep up with all of these changes that are happening. So in my past individuals, the expertise that's out in the field that can sustain the system for what it is right now and keep up with that. I guess my question is, as far as industry is concerned, are you seeing that you're able to meet that manpower to keep up with the change in technology, the needs and requirements for sustaining these systems that go out, or is that a struggle?
So great question. I'll say that the RMF business associated with, so first of all, public-private partnerships, ESPCs and BSCs for most companies are very lumpy, right? It's a lumpy business. You get a monster out there, and then you finish that up, and then you have a dry pipeline for a little while, and then you get another monster. And so you need to ramp up. You need to have engineering staff, and you need to have information assurance resource staff that can address those. And so trying to have those types of competencies, those full competencies in-house all the time is expensive, and it's very laborious. So with that being said, what we did is we spun up an information assurance resource center that's staffed with very knowledgeable people that can be the core that run the project, and then we outsource with trusted partners for parts and pieces of those larger projects that can help contribute to our team, because it's very difficult to keep all those resources on staff all the time. And Jay is one of those people that works with industry to help fill those voids in the RMF process and stay abreast of what's happening, right? One of the things that we love to do, and I know that Siemens does as well, and Schweitzer, is we actually work with people from the DoD. They're either part-time, employees within DoD, or maybe the reservists who are involved in information assurance within federal agencies already. They have that background and they work at it as their night job, their weekend job. They know it inside and out, and so they can provide some adult supervision, some of that guidance, right? Because it's very difficult to stay abreast of those changing trends. Thank you.
I always have another question. I'm thinking about, Michael Clement, who's here from TVA, and when we speak about microgrids, Jim, I think about what's your experience like as you're working on government installations where you're doing microgrids and renewables and so forth, in terms of working with the major generators, and how are they viewing microgrids as they begin to grow? Because I'm always concerned about those guys. They've been in business a long time. As this microgrids and renewables come online, that affects them. So just wonder what your experience has been in terms of how positive that is or not.
You've got great questions, Jay. So the large generators around the country, I will say that most of them, they've got two stories. They welcome these generation assets because they struggle with congestion in transmission capabilities in their own networks. And yet, it's very hard to work with these distributed generation assets because you don't have control over them, right? So it's good and it's bad. I'll say that where I'm seeing the most amount of willingness to work with these microgrids is at the EMC level, or the smaller companies that are involved in the end sale use of energy. So at a lot of military installations, they've gone through privatization activities. And you may have let's go to Fort Stewart, for instance, Canucci, right? Canucci's the EMC at Fort Stewart. They've got a 50-year operating contract, I believe, out there. And they are tasked with finding ways to increase energy efficiency as part of their contract. So being able to work with a utility like an EMC in those instances can be a little bit easier because they're tasked with, and they own the infrastructure for, implementing a microgrid. Other applications, you may go to a military installation that's gone through a privatization activity, and the utility doesn't want to work, does not want to be responsible for a microgrid, and yet all of the distribution assets are owned by the utility company, and it becomes much more challenging to implement a microgrid, as you can imagine, right? Because that medium voltage infrastructure is owned by the utility company, so you really need them on your team. Not only that, but when you start to develop I always tell people this, when you begin to develop a microgrid, one of the first stops you need to make is to the utility company, right? Because you have to have an interconnection agreement with that utility company. And that can be the long pole in the tent, believe it or not, getting that interconnection relationship, getting that approval to operate with them. Especially when you're talking about doing something like a closed connection where you don't want to have any black time in between the transition, right, between open and closed. So if you want to have a bumpless transition where you're spinning up, maybe you have generators running 24/7 in parallel with the utility company, and you want to be able to disconnect from them and guarantee them that you will not feed their grid. Those types of discussions are quite complicated and take a long period of time. So I kind of skirted your question because I don't have any good answers for that one. But thanks for making me uncomfortable. It's it.
Coming back to RMF costs, right now you're talking a little bit about cloud, but a lot of the cost has to go with sort of the one-off nature of things that are being implemented. Is there, I assume you're trying to work towards something like a type accreditation or reference architecture so that you can leverage things that you've already done. Is that a reasonable way of proceeding with RMF?
So it is, that's a great point, and there's some challenges in that environment. So we always strive to get type accreditation for equipment, what I call parts and pieces, right? So you want your controllers and your breakers and your meters to have, to be on the APL with the Corps of Engineers, the approved product list with the Corps of Engineers for having the stamp on it, kind of like a UL stamp for type accreditation in the RMF process. The challenge comes in that RMF isn't just a parts and pieces, it's a whole system, right? And that works out really well. If you're Siemens and it's a Siemens system all over, it's Siemens breakers and Siemens gear and Siemens controllers or Honeywell, 100%, it's really easy, right? But it's never that. It's never that easy. So one of the challenges that everybody has right now is you go into a military installation and you're working with maybe 10 or 15 manufacturers, some of which may or may not be able to be accredited. And how can you guarantee that accreditation going down the road if something needs to be remediated? So you start scanning controllers, building controllers 5 years down the road and something fails. What if they don't want to work with you? Those are huge challenges in the industry. So yeah, we absolutely strive for type accreditation in all of our products that are going to be applied in a microgrid or even outside of a microgrid, right, within the DoD or federal facilities. But that overall accreditation boundary encompasses so much more than just our things. It's a huge challenge. And there's no clean answer, right? We just do the best we can and work through it. But I love the question, thank you.
All right, so if there are no further questions, give him a hand for paying the price and joining us. And we try to do a little networking after the meetings right now, and also I've asked Jim to hang around and go to lunch with us at Landry's, and it's an opportunity to kind of sit in a social environment and kind of talk about what we're all trying to do to move forward in the energy sector. So I'd like for you to come over and join us for that. One other thing I'd like to do is ask who has come to our meeting for the first time. Is there any first timers today? Please stand up and introduce yourselves and who you work with. What excites you about energy?
Good morning. My name is Apple Castle. I'm coming from Fort Hood. I work for Portia Porter at Huntsville Corps of Engineers in the energy division. And what excites me about energy is what you want to know? Just that everything. Just sum it up like that. Being the worker bee at the installation level, seeing the different implementations of energy that you can use from just turning the lights off, having home, I like to call it home training, and to actually implementing and installing solar panels and solar thermal. Being a mechanical background, that's fascinating to me. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Let me ask you this, you work with the Porsche. What is your primary responsibility there at the Corps?
Well, my title is a strategic development lead.
Say again?
Strategic development lead.
Okay.
So I basically go after new initiatives that are internal to the energy community, and also do a kind of a teaching aspect of it as well. I'm fascinated by the microgrid discussions because that is one of our new initiatives that we're getting into, and kind of trying to stand up programs and whatnot, not just with microgrid, but other endeavors that come down the pike.
Right, Keisha is going to need to check in with her in this Innovate Week. She's responsible for innovation from her perspective, so she'd be an important contributor to that event.
I did write that down.
Who else is new?
Hey, I'm Joe Fischetti from Siemens Government Technologies. I'm director for Army and Air Force Business Development. Those two accounts. 25-year vet, air defender by trade. So Huntsville was on my DE track back in the day. And what excites me about energy, and especially energy security, is that it's relevant, and it's relevant to the defense of the nation, defense of our soldiers. So that's really motivates me every day. So maybe moving down here in the summertime. So any suggestions about good places to live?
Where you work?
I'm out of DC office. Out of
DC.
Richardson City.
And I missed the company.
Siemens Government Technologies.
Siemens? Okay, thanks so much for paying the price. Who else?
William Riggle with 47E, local contractor here in town. Come by and check it out. I know this guy. Not that we set that up, I question on because we did. But what excites me about here, the attempt to try to save some.
Thank you for being here. Okay, so now it's time to, one of the most important, sorry, who else? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Drew.
I'll reintroduce myself. Drew Tyler here in Huntsville Southern Development Council, engaged in financing for businesses, investments, what you were just talking about there, either energy conservation or green energy, renewable energy, generating some of your own power.
Right.
So,
I was thinking of Charles King and his systems that are really energy driven. You need to talk to him a little bit about what you can do to support people who are interested in doing that stuff. So, yes.
I'm also Chris Snyder. Good morning. My name is Jennifer Brinkley. I'm here today representing TechRich, which is an SBA-funded program that helps facilitate relationships between small businesses and the government. I'm also an attorney, which I've spent most of my time specializing in government contracts. So I'm interested in energy for the same reason the other gentleman mentioned, and the role it plays in the defense of our country.
Great, thank you for being here. Let's see, Kevin, I was kind of thinking about the Women's Business Center. They're always putting out announcements about what's coming. Is there anything that, I know you're on the board, is there anything that got going that you need?
I think the Innovate Huntsville is our big next.
Okay, thank you for being here. All right, well, thank you for coming and spend some time together. You know, we always say at the end of the program, you know, put your badges back on, get your business cards out, meet each other, and let's get after this work together. So thanks again for being here.
That was our first Energy Council meeting of 2017. We were so glad to be able to bring it to you on Facebook Live, and we'll be doing it every month, so stay tuned. If you missed an Energy Council meeting but want to watch it live, we'll be more than happy to convey your questions during the meeting, so you can send us comments and we'll reply to them. Also stay tuned to the Nexus Energy Center YouTube channel for all the other media outlets we do. Thanks.